This dame comes in all kinds of shapes, colors, and sizes. So what makes her a reply card? What about wording? What's she got to say for herself? And why are we investigating this itty-bitty, insignificant card? Well, stick with me, kid. I'm about to answer those questions and more in this in-depth dive into the small but very significant player in a wedding invitation suite. But first, why this investigation? You see, many times when I would consult with brides, once we'd spent possibly an hour selecting fonts and colors and working on wording her wedding invitation in the way that worked best for her in her particular circumstances, believe it or not, I'd quite often tell her, and now we probably have another hour for working on wording your reply card. And it was true. Because of the detailed amount of information needed to lay out a reply card, these itty-bitty little cards can take a whole lot of time to get just right. Merriam-Webster defines a reply card as any card for use in mailing a reply that is provided by the one who requests the reply and who sometimes offers to pay the postage for the reply. But for the purposes of this investigation, we'll define her simply as the card that's included in a wedding invitation suite for the purpose of responding to the wedding invitation. But as elementary as that may sound, these cards are not that simple. So let's take a step back and investigate her history. Believe it or not, a reply card is actually a pretty modern convention because back in the day, social invitations were responded to through a handwritten note. In fact, to this day, your most formal or traditional wedding invitations might not include reply cards, as the expectation would be that the guests would know to send their answer in the form of a short handwritten note. From the very limited research I did for this class on the history of wedding invitations, Google told me that, quote, after World War II, wedding stationery was made commercially available and almost all engaged couples began sending formal wedding invitations. No longer were beautiful wedding invitations reserved only for society's elite. But as many things Google tells me these days, this date cannot be correct because this is my grandparents' wedding invitation from 1927, and they certainly weren't society's elite. So the day when wedding stationery became more commercially available must have been much earlier than World War II. And while we're on it, Miss Manners called and would like you to take note that stationery is spelled with an E at the end, as opposed to stationary, which is spelled with the A. Stationary means not moving or not intended to be moved.
Who says? I do. You want to make something of it?
So please correct your website posts and Instagram hashtags for her. Thank you, but I digress. As I was saying, back in the day, a response to an invitation would have been sent in the form of a short handwritten note, whether to a printed wedding invitation or possibly even a handwritten invitation. And back in their day, wedding cards were not yet sent out, but instead weddings were announced in the newspapers, which were printed by a very cool, relatively new invention of the past centuries called the printing press. And back in their days, back when it wasn't a thing for the general public to be taught how to read or write, well, wedding invitations were announced by a town crier. No, I said a town crier. Not that type of crier. Oh, whatever. And so, back in their day, well, you get it. But now, back to the printing presses. As printing became more economical and therefore more accessible to the public, the printed wedding card or invitation became more commonplace, and soon afterwards, the additional card with which to return the reply. Crane & Company's Wedding Blue Book states, quote, "Historically, all social invitations were responded to through a handwritten note. However, over time, this particular point of etiquette seemed to fade from the public consciousness and led to the development of the reply cards. Most wedding ensembles now include a reply card that serves as a response device for both the wedding and reception." The Blue Book later goes into more details stating, "Over time and owing to many factors, including a lack of understanding of social etiquette and increased demands on individual time, this tradition has fallen by the wayside and reply cards have become a standard element in the current wedding invitation sets." Ugh. Etiquette schmetiquette. Does following proper etiquette even matter anymore? Well, yeah, if you understand the full meaning of the concept. The dictionary defines etiquette as the customary code of polite behavior in society or among members of a particular profession or group. It comes from the word
Etiquette.
meaning a list of ceremonial observances of court. But look at the synonyms of etiquette: polite behavior, good manners, decorum, form, good form, courtesy, politeness, civility, propriety, niceties. These are all quintessential characteristics that absolutely still matter. And according to Emily Post, the grande dame of etiquette, she says, "The philosophy of etiquette is timeless and everlasting, whereas manners, the outward expression of the underlying principles of etiquette, are ever-changing. Manners, by their very nature, adapt to the times. While today's manners are often situational, tailored to particular circumstances and the expectations of those around us, they remain a combination of common sense, generosity of spirit, and a few specific guidelines or fluid rules that help us interact thoughtfully. And as fluid as manners are, they all rest on the same fundamental principles of etiquette, which are consideration, respect, and honesty." She goes on to describe consideration as being aware of and understanding how a situation affects everyone involved. Respect is demonstrated by actions, appearance, and words that honor and value others. Honesty compels us to choose to act with integrity in ways that honor and respect others. Allows us to apply empathy to find the positive truth and act upon it without causing embarrassment or pain. And her two other essential qualities of etiquette are graciousness and kindness, which are an integral part of courteous behavior. Graciousness is the ability to make other people feel welcome and comfortable in your world. I think that's beautiful and deserves repeating. Graciousness is the ability to make other people feel welcome and comfortable in your world. Kindness is much like consideration, but it also reflects the warmth in your heart. And regarding etiquette, Crane's wedding book says,
"As our society evolves, so does our etiquette. Many of the rules of etiquette were made and continue to be made to deal with changing situations. Some of the etiquette deemed proper in this book would have been unthinkable generations ago. And surely,
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
a generation from now, many of the guidelines presented here will seem archaic and obsolete."
And to sum up the concept of etiquette, here is a lovely quote I found from Joyce Gardena Becker, president of Events of Distinction. She says, "Wedding etiquette today is what it has always been, a code of behavior based on thoughtfulness and considering the needs of your guests." The following is what I want to be the takeaway from this particular lesson. The reply card emerged as a consideration of the guest's time. It's a convention of convenience for them. Though the reply card may be a helpful organizational tool for the host of the wedding, it was not created for the convenience of the host and should not be considered a convenience for the host, but rather for the convenience of the guest. So whether you are a wedding invitation designer or designing your own wedding invitation, please, please, please toss out, no, hurl out any idea of using an online reply form. Until it becomes socially acceptable to send an electronic or online wedding invitation with a clickable link for the reply, this convention should be thrown as far off the wedding invitation table as possible. An online reply portal, though fabulously convenient for the host, requires that the guests take the reply information card to their computer or their tiny little smartphone and then read the tiny little website address with its ridiculously long URL and then type everything into the tiny little window with their big fat fingers without making any mistakes. Then, once they've arrived at their destination, they have to follow the vastly complicated instructions on the site to figure out just how they're supposed to conveniently click to vote their convenient response to the wedding invitation. In short form, currently, the online reply device is inconsiderate and disrespectful of a guest's time, and therefore is essentially an ungracious demand that's placed upon them. Was that indecorous of me to point out? Brides, for the very large part, will have never crafted a reply card or a wedding invitation for that matter, and will always be in need of gentle guidance when creating their invitation suites. Giving care to thoughtfulness and consideration while composing their invitation suite will cause a bride's guests to feel graciously invited, whereas carelessness and disregard may readily make a bride's invitees feel disrespected, uneasy, and some may even feel put upon. It's the responsibility of the wedding invitation pro to guide their bride so that they will always shine in the most positive and gracious light to their guests. And so here ends our first lesson on that elusive dame called the reply card. We'll be covering wording of the reply card in depth on lesson 3 of this series. But before we get there, let's take a deep dive into the physical attributes that go into making a reply card. Well, a reply card. Come on, I'll see you there.